Welcome back. In this week's episode, we discuss the push for a cashless society, updates on the war in Ukraine, or rather updates on the war in Ukraine, as well as the absolute state of the union. I'm Luke.
And I'm Rody.
And this is the Right Side of the Compass podcast. So, Rody, happy International Women's Month.
Oh, thank you. Great to know that we moved on to another month with a theme.
Well, last month it was about black people, but now that we're done with black people, we can stop caring about black people. Now we could start caring about women, which is interesting. International Women's Month is very interesting because I've been reliably informed that women are just a transphobic conspiracy theory. So,
really now?
Yeah. That women don't actually exist. We can all choose whatever gender we want.
Yeah,
so the existence of women,
society,
social constructs.
Yeah, social contract.
Yeah. So we don't have to be men or women. So, there's no reason why like women should get their own month if they're just fake. If we kind of all just made them up,
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's just what I just noticed that. How's everything going? I know it's been a while since I've been on. It feels like forever.
Yeah, no, everything's good. Everything is, I'm alive, so, can't complain.
That's good. That's very, very good. I mean, you could complain, just no one cares. I care, Rody. I care. Okay? I care. Right. You can complain to me after the show.
Thanks.
Anyways, yeah, so and if it's about pay, I'm sorry, payment is not in the budget. We're spending too much money paying me to pay you.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe next time.
All right. We want to continue providing quality podcasts for you, oh dear listener. But in order to do that, we need your help. Please like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to that channel. You can also find us on all of your favorite platforms, such as Apple, Google, and Spotify. In addition, you can reach out to us by sliding into those DMs at the Right Side of the Compass on Instagram, as well as by commenting on the videos. Who knows? You may even hear back from us. So I wanted to start today by talking about the absolute State of the Union. The absolute State of the Union.
The absolute. Is that what they called it?
No, because it's not. Today we're talking about the absolute State of the Union to differentiate from the official State of the Union.
Oh, why is it usually on a different day?
No, it's just the State of the Union is given by the President of the United States, and I'm neither Joe Biden or Donald Trump, so I can't give it. So I can't give the State of the Union, but I can give the absolute State of the Union. And what that means is I'm going to tell you how the Union's actually doing, and not prepared statements for.
Oh, okay. I got it now.
Yeah,
like
okay.
How it's actually do. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, well, we're gonna do it. You're gonna help me, Rody.
Oh, woohoo!
Yeah, so I roped you into this, so we're all in this together.
Yeah.
I thought I'd never want to hear that phrase again, but we're all in this together here. So, Rody, you're gonna help me out here. So, how do you think the Union is doing, Rody? How do you think America's doing?
I mean, we're still somehow moving. So, but I mean, it could be better.
That's very nice of you. Most people wouldn't put it that way, I think.
Yeah, no, I just think that, what the founders, the system made, to keep every other branch in check, is working. So like, some of the things he did want to do didn't go because the opposing side didn't let them. So
you're getting ahead of yourself. Let's talk about the State of the Union.
But in general, I guess I'm trying to put it nicely.
That's one way to put it.
But if you want to be a bad cop, you can.
Fair enough. I think when it comes to the State of the Union, I have one question. America, are you okay? Do you need any help?
Do you need help? Do you need to see someone?
America, vote for Joe Biden if you're in trouble. I
We know
guess.
I know some good therapists you can go see, America.
Yeah, well, not me. I'm not. I can't be a therapist. I'm not a licensed therapist. I thought it's important to point out we are not licensed to do therapy. So, America, if you need a therapist, find someone else. But we did point out that things are not okay in the U.S. of A. See what I did there?
I saw what you did there.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about. I don't want to dignify Biden's State of the Union address too much because it wasn't very good, and more importantly, I couldn't even watch it. Like I tried to do it, but there are certain things I will not debase myself to do, and one of the things is listening to an old man make up words and kind of drift off into space while he's talking. Just like I cannot do that, and that's what the State of the Union was from what I gather from other people who did put themselves through it, possibly, they maybe did their jobs, but I've never been a person who's been particularly good at, doing work. So I didn't watch it. But I did do the Spark Notes version. So I watched what other people said about the State of the Union. And they said that pretty much what I thought would happen was going to happen, which is Biden would talk a bunch of nonsense, make up some words, and Democrats would act like he's the greatest president of all time. And that's that. Although there was a very funny moment, I was watching the Daily Wire's coverage of it, and I was watching Nancy Pelosi introduce the president of the United States. Why don't we roll the B-roll footage, and we'll let you see what happened.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you the President of the United States.
She sounds like a preschool teacher, kind of. It's like, today we're having a special guest speaker, you guys, yay! As if she's not talking to a room full of serious adults. And I think that's part of the problem. She's not really speaking to a room full of serious adults, which is why she felt the need to clap her hands like an idiot and say, yay!
Yeah.
Whatever. This is I don't know. I when I first saw it, maybe it was the time of day I saw it. I just burst into laughter. I don't know. Maybe I just find things funny that really aren't.
No, it's funny. It's funny.
I thought, yeah. So no. So that's what happened. I think there was also a point where like Nancy Pelosi kind of looked like a fly. She was like rubbing her hands together like a fly, or something. A lot of people were talking about that, but I think this is a star moment, and this needs to be immortalized in all of human history. Anyways, so that was what happened at the State of the Union as far as I'm concerned. But let's talk about how the country's doing in terms of everything that's going on. So, first of all, ever since Biden was the president, things have been going downhill very quickly. I think it's important to point out if you have a car in the United States, you see the effects of the Biden presidency on your wallet almost immediately.
I mean, definitely, obviously, inflation is through the roof because of all the printing of money and, the stimulus and the bills he's been passing. So, yeah, you're definitely not like it used to be.
Yeah, but I think it's especially important to point out that under the Trump presidency, Trump made it very important to us as a country that we're energy efficient and energy self-sufficient. We get our own energy, and I think especially for a world power, that's crucial because a world power needs to be independent of small things. Like, listen, I don't think America needs to start producing our own, like, I don't know, sushi salmon. Like, I don't think that's critical, but I think for in terms of energy, we need our own energy, and that was very important to Trump. But Biden shut down the Keystone Pipeline and started getting more gas from Russia, which is part of the reason why we're here. In terms of, but we'll talk about Ukraine later. But gas prices went up especially because of policy decisions made by the Biden administration, specifically about energy, which is very important to point out. So there is that. And then there was also bare shelves Biden. People are noticing that there's less food on the shelves. It's costing more money. I noticed that even in Israel, it's getting harder to buy food. There's a lot of shortages. It's getting all the way here.
Well, yeah, because that's what happens when you're a world power. If the world power, if the greatest economy is getting affected, it affects the rest of the world also.
Yeah, so that's definitely true. Um, Afghanistan pullout, that was a nightmare, don't you think?
Yeah, that was a disaster.
Was the podcast out during the Afghanistan pullout?
No, I do not think so.
Okay, so I didn't really get to say what I thought about the Afghanistan pullout. So I guess I could say that right now it seems very obvious to anyone who is paying attention that the Afghanistan pullout, it seems to have, the thing about the Afghanistan pullout is that if I was like, I can almost imagine it in my mind as like there's a council of people sitting there addressing Biden, and there's a guy there. There's one guy who has all the great ideas, but everyone else hates him. So they do the opposite of what he says out of spite. And that's kind of like what happened here, right? Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong, and it wasn't, by accident. It was because they made terrible decisions. They signaled weakness, and which is a theme in the Biden administration, signaling weakness, because you can't really signal strength when you're a man who can't pronounce true international pressure, right?
Yeah.
Like if you say true non-Shabbat pressure and you can't say true international pressure, or whatever it was he was saying, I don't remember what he was trying to say. You can't really signal strength.
Which again, I think it's relevant even today with the Afghanistan, because it kind of trickles into the Ukraine-Russia situation now, where we'll talk about it later.
Well, of course.
How like Russia doesn't feel threatened by the U.S. because of what happened with Afghanistan.
Well, that's also similar to what happened in Israel over the summer in May. Remember that what happened in May?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so there was a war, or it was more like an operation, I would say. We didn't actually send troops in. I don't think we did. But yeah, that was partly because they knew that Biden wasn't going to blow up the world if Hamas starts sending rockets into Israel. But when Trump was in office, we got the embassy, we got the Golan Heights, we started, chipping away at, Judea and Samaria. And the reason is simple. Trump is strong, Biden is weak, and the enemy knew that they could take advantage of weakness. And that's why we're seeing what's going on in Ukraine today. It's also why we're seeing, I wouldn't be shocked if the Chinese take Taiwan, because again, Taiwan exists because of American strength. If America signals weakness, which is what it's currently doing, Taiwan is going to fall. And I'm not a particularly smart person for saying this. This is pretty basic. I think the important thing is to understand that we are not serious people at the moment. And that is why we're having this, because it's the same thing with the clapping and the yay, right? Because serious people don't talk the way that Nancy Pelosi does, and serious people don't they don't do the things that are happening right now. But I think the worst thing that happened is that we all hate each other now. We all hate each other now. Not to say that this wasn't a problem under Trump, but I do think Biden kind of exacerbated the problem, because before Biden, there was only really half the country that was involved in the hate, right? Like, I think when Trump was the president, you had the Republicans and the broadly speaking, the Trump base, right? They were kind of like just having a good time, and they were, doing what they wanted to do. And they were like, yeah, let's get some liberals on our side. Let's try to communicate. More and more, I'm beginning to see that a lot of the Trump base, they've been thoroughly black-pilled. And now they're just kind of like, yeah, when we get back into power, when Trump gets back in 2024, we're just scorched earth. And that's not good,
No, we're definitely divided more than we've ever been, unfortunately. And that's, very much due to also the pandemic. Definitely, like, if we were very separated before, the pandemic has definitely not rushed it. I'm losing my English.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, it's accelerated.
There we go. There you go. If you would have seen the State of the Union, I would have forgiven you, because anyone can forget their English looking and listening to Joe Biden, but you didn't even see it. So what's your excuse? No, yeah, I think so. I think here's the thing. I don't think the pandemic made. I will say this. I think during the pandemic, the initial moments of the pandemic, I think everyone was kind of in this together, and then the BLM protests started, and then people started noticing like, hey, the Democrats are playing these dirty games. They're kind of burning down our cities, and they're telling us we can't go outside to get go to the bodega, but the Democrats are burning down cities in the name of social justice, and that's not bad for COVID, apparently, allegedly. And that was like one thing, right? But the minute the Democrats weaponized the vaccine, which Trump didn't do, right? Trump gave us the vaccine, but he didn't weaponize it. He never wanted to mandate it. He's been on record many times saying like it should be your choice. And if Trump was the president, we never would have gotten to the point in any country where you have to get permission from the government to do anything based on whether you have a vaccine or not. We never would have gotten there. Israel would never have gotten this way, the way it is. Thank God they're pulling back. Thank God, but we never would have gotten to that point had Trump been in office, because Trump would have said, "Oh, that's not how we're going to do things." That definitely didn't help, and then like the election didn't look good because the Democrats changed all the rules, and that's not really Biden, but still, it's not good. But it was the Democrats, it was Biden that weaponized the vaccine. And that's a big problem. And so now we're at this thing. We're at the war in Ukraine, which at the State of the Union they did kind of bring up. And by they kind of brought up, they had like the ambassador from Ukraine be there, and everyone was like waving the blue and yellow flags like idiots, even though they won't wave the American flag. These people, they'll kneel for it, but they'll wave the Ukrainian flag, which I don't mind other forms of nationalism, but in America I want American nationalism. So that's that. But yeah, war in Ukraine, definitely Biden's fault, because you remember what he got. You remember what he said based on, I think it was something along the small incursion, minor incursion. You remember when he got caught saying that?
No, I did not see that.
Yeah, so he was like, someone asked him like, oh, is Putin going to invade Ukraine? He's like, well, if Putin invades Ukraine, we're going to blah, 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 because Biden doesn't know how to speak anymore. And he says like, well, if it's a small incursion, you never say that. You never say small incursion. Mm-hmm. It turns out that Trump said to like Putin, like, oh, if you invade Ukraine, we're going to bomb Moscow. Which is that's a power move. That's a real power move.
Yeah, no, you need yeah, no, that's what was great about Trump. Like I said in the last podcast I did, it was all, this would not be happening if Trump, was in office. And one thing that he did great was international, relations, and that he just played hardball and like you just did not mess.
Exactly. He was he played the madman really well.
Yeah, exactly.
He played, and what's really interesting is that Trump, he was the America First guy, but ironically, perhaps, or maybe not even ironically, perhaps unironically, perhaps it was by design. Perhaps this is really what America First means. His foreign policy was the best aspect of his presidency. Like, of all the great things he did, his foreign policy was the best.
Well, yeah, because I believe, because it's like this concept. When I was it's the same concept. It's you need to focus on yourself first, because if you don't focus on yourself first, this is like personal and I believe maybe like geopolitical, then you can't help anyone else. So, for example, like when I was a lifeguard, okay, they would say like your safety is first. So it's like, because if you're in danger, well, if you're injured or you can't do something, well, then you can't help someone else. So like, I think it's the same concept where it's like, America first. And then you can, if you focus on America first, then you can then, help other people potentially.
But I think it's almost the opposite way. I think he's just very, very, I think he wanted to do a lot more America first, but he was inhibited by the administrative state. But the administrative state, I guess, didn't give him as much of a difficult time in the foreign relations aspect. And so he was able to do a lot more there. And just as a reality of his existence, he is a businessman. He's good at making deals. He's good at like kind of playing hardball. Like, he needs to be a good negotiator. So I feel that he did very well in foreign relations. Ask like anyone, he did incredible there. I don't think there's anyone who's honest, who wants good things for the United States, who would say Trump was terrible at foreign relations. I think even his worst critics, would have to admit that he did some great stuff foreign relations. And this was it. Like, he brokered the Abraham Accords. We had those. And now the Middle East is falling apart again because we pulled out of Afghanistan, like, in the messiest way possible to risk a lurid image. We have now Ukraine, and we don't even know what's going to happen with China yet. So that's that. But in terms of Ukraine, I think the point has been made that the State of the Union is an absolute shambles. Hopefully it will all turn out well, but that's going to rely on everyone going to the polls in 2022, kind of shutting down the Democrats. But that's that. I don't really know what else there is to say. Anyone who's been paying attention, anyone who's responsible for their own bills in 2022, would know that the State of the Union is not so great, and that's really what it is. But enough about the State of the Union in the United States. Let's talk about Ukraine, because there is stuff going on in Ukraine. That there are updates. So first is Russia's winning the war. Anyone who's telling you that Spoiler alert. Well, here's the thing. I think there are genuinely people who see the propaganda. They're not very discerning. And so they say, like, but Ukraine is fighting back valiantly and this and that. And no doubt that they're fighting back valiantly, but Russia's winning the war, very obviously. If you want to, of course, there's a lot of good literature out on Ukraine. I was keeping up with Ukraine on Lotus Eater's podcast. There's a guy over there who's doing a lot of work. He's just paying very close attention to Ukraine. You can go to, I believe it's like ukraineobservatory.org. Let me just double check that. Yeah, ukraineobservatory.org. You've got John Wheatley of Lotus Eaters. He's been paying attention very, 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 very closely. He actually, they did a video on like the Russian military and how like dysfunctional it is. So it's incredible. But even so, the Russians are winning the war. That's just the absolute, what's going on, the absolute truth. And there's going to be someone who's going to be shocked if Ukraine gets conquered. And I have to tell you, like, I mean, I don't know if they'll get conquered. Like, who knows? But,
well, that's not their plan. They said they just want to replace the government with a government that would listen to them more.
Well, they always say that, but who the hell knows? Like, I don't know if that's necessarily. I don't know if that's necessarily. Like, people say
True.
things all the time, like, we don't know what's really going to happen because this one's saying this and that one's saying that. And that's actually my next point, that both sides are using propaganda to garner sympathy from the world. Like, that's just the reality,
Yeah, you've seen. I've only been seeing, these videos for Ukraine. I haven't seen anything from Russia.
Well, Russia was trying to use propaganda, but just the world is not having it. So, for example, a lot of their media has been shut down in the West. They can't use Facebook and Instagram. They're shut down from social media now, so they can't talk about it on social media. But they have their own propaganda inside Russia to kind of bolster themselves.
Well, because then the army wouldn't have any motive to fight.
Well, the motive is that, there's a guy pointing a gun at your head telling you to go fight. That's the motive. That's a very simple and easy motive to understand, that's just how it is. I think people give the Russian military too much flack. I really don't think it's up to the Russian soldier to kind of throw his gun down on the floor and say, I'm not doing this, like I'm not going to war. Like we lost the art of, kind of going with your country, even if like you don't necessarily agree with what you don't necessarily agree with.
A lot of videos of Russian soldiers surrendering.
Listen, you surrender. You don't have to die for your country if you don't believe in what they're saying. But like Ukrainians are also surrendering. That doesn't mean they don't believe in their country. That doesn't mean they haven't fought valiantly for their country. I mean, you got the Ukrainian propaganda, of course. I'm sure you know Ukrainian propaganda. You know what's been going on in Ukraine for the propaganda, right?
I mean, I've only been seeing what was on Facebook and all these different videos of, different of I've been seeing a lot of social media stuff where like, oh, one citizen is sitting somewhere, and then there was like a bomb that like, or an explosion behind him, or other Ukrainian citizens holding guns, but not like, I haven't been seeing like state propaganda.
Well, that's kind of like the interesting thing I was thinking about. It's like, you know how in the Geneva Conventions it talks about the distinction between, like army and civilian, right?
Yeah,
So, but what if we're living in an era where there is really no distinction? Because if let's and I was thinking about this because I was
but
watching
in which way though?
Well, I'm going to explain because on the Timcast IRL podcast, they pointed out that Latvia just signed a bill in their whatever parliament they have saying that their citizens are allowed to go fight for Ukraine, right?
Okay.
So, but think about what that means, right? Latvia is not sending their soldiers to go fight because the Latvians don't want to get involved with their own army. But what they're doing is they're saying, oh, if you're a civilian and you want to get involved with the Ukrainian, you could go to Ukraine now, right?
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah,
but
I get it.
right,
If you really want to go, like, we give you permission to go.
yeah. So, what does that mean in terms of like, is Latvia essentially declaring war on Ukraine by proxy, the same way that NATO has been, the American empire?
No, that's very
Sorry, by
interesting.
proxy.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's very interesting that they did that, because like you said, they're not getting involved themselves, but like they're getting their citizens that feel very strongly about it to go. That's very interesting, actually. I never
Right,
thought of that.
right. And the thing is that the point of these rules of war, the Geneva Conventions, is to kind of really separate the soldier from the civilian, right? But if the civilians get involved with the war by making up things on social media to try to sway public opinion, right? Now, I'm not saying that, social media influencers should be shot for saying he supports Ukraine or Russia, whatever it is. I'm not saying that, but I am pointing out the very like kind of real aspect that, even if Ukraine very much does have its own propaganda machine, it's very hard to know. Like, for example, the Ghost of Kiev, very obviously propaganda, all these things. But if the media is making up stuff to get America involved, right, is that not war by media? Is that not war by civilian cell phones taking pictures?
Yeah.
You know,
It's very interesting because like it's not like World War II where it's just like fighting, but because we have all this information in social media, like the whole board game has changed.
that's
So
that's why this is the most interesting war that's happened in my lifetime. Because this isn't America rolling into like a Durka Durka society, blowing up everything, installing a puppet government, and then kind of not knowing what to do with themselves. Here, this is an actual war between actual countries, but now you have this angle of, well, now you have this media war that's going on because World War
yeah,
II, there was no media war. And in Vietnam, the media war was the media also had very distinct players, but now anyone can participate in the media war.
exactly. I think, well, I mean, there was media war. I mean, there was propaganda, but like you said, not to the, like you said, it was for this. There was only few people that had the access, which was like either the states or certain
Networks.
broadcasting systems.
Yeah.
But now, like everyone
Yeah, I could pick up a
has it.
cell phone and make propaganda too. Like, no one's stopping me, except my conscience, of course. Conscience, of course. But yeah, that's the reality. Now, here's the thing. In general, I support Ukraine in terms of the war. I think most people do. I have seen a couple of smooth brain takes, like supporting Russia. I don't think anyone supports Russia itself. But you do have the Ukrainians kind of trying to exacerbate this and turn it into World War III for very obvious reasons. And so they're now seeking membership in the EU and assistance from NATO. They want NATO to do a no-fly zone. It's very easy to understand why Zelensky wants this. I don't begrudge him that. But I will say that it's not appropriate to kind of drag the world into World War III, especially after 2 years of COVID. I don't think like no,
Yeah,
like seriously, like come on, man. Like to quote a president of the United States, come on, man.
come on, man.
Come on, man. Like I like you. Like I want Ukraine to be an independent country, but not that badly.
It's just amazing. It's like, oh, we just went through a pandemic. What can go? What could be worse?
It
World
can't.
War Three,
You know what it was?
nuclear holocaust.
No, you know what? You know what it was? Someone said like, someone that's like towards the end of the pandemic is like, I'm 2 years into the pandemic. I have no money. I lost my job. I have to get this stupid vaccine now. How could this possibly get any worse? Like, and then, because whenever someone says that in the movies, it gets worse.
It gets worse.
So, I do want to point out, I think no one's been pointing this out, right before the pandemic, we were about to go into World War III. Remember that with Iran?
Oh, I mean, people were talking about it, but me personally, I didn't think it was going to happen.
No, of course, I didn't think it was going to happen either. I don't think it's going to break.
People were talking about it, yeah.
Yeah, but then the pandemic broke out, and then everyone stopped talking about World War III. So it's very fitting that now that we're done talking about the pandemic, we're talking about World War III again.
I just find it hilarious how, like, people forget it. Like, once the media focuses on something else, people just forget the other thing, like it never happened. It's incredible. Like, now you barely hear about the pandemic. You might hear like a few things here and there about like schools and mandates, stuff like that. But like I don't have to get into like arguments anymore. Like, no one's really wearing a mask like where I am anymore, and no one's talking about it. They talk about it like in the past, like, oh, like during the pandemic this and this happened, but like no one's like talking about it anymore, because like it's just amazing how they just boom flip the switch and now they're just focusing on Ukraine and Russia. I just find it incredible.
Well, you can thank Vladimir Putin for that then, I suppose.
Thank you, Putin.
Yeah, because no, the truth is
that was his plan all along.
He
decided to save the world by becoming the enemy that everyone hates.
Yeah, that's kind of like Attack on Titan.
Well, I was thinking more like Lelouch from Code Geass, where he becomes the bad guy and he becomes the common enemy that everyone hates.
Yeah, well, that's similar. Well,
to save the world.
Yeah, for sure. But that also happens in Attack on Titan.
Don't spoil anything.
Well, I'm sorry. The manga's out. The manga's out.
I know the manga's out. I didn't read it.
Okay, well,
I'm an anime person, not a manga person. Sorry for all the manga fans out there.
Ugh. Whatever. But the thing is that the media really likes this because they were about to be caught with their pants down in terms of the pandemic, and I assume that just on this show we're gonna have to cover the pandemic again, because the minute stuff comes out about the vaccine, about the lockdowns, we saw that study from Johns Hopkins saying that the lockdowns didn't do anything. So they weren't in a good position in terms of the lockdowns and the vaccine and everything. And everyone was kind of like, and the face masks were not going well. So now they kind of they can just pivot. They don't have to answer for it. So they're liking this, the media, because they're very happy. Like, oh, Putin's the bad guy now. I mean, not that he was a great guy. Don't get me wrong. He's a thug, a KGB like killer. He poisons his political opponents. Don't get me wrong. He's not a good dude. But this is very convenient for the media, and don't let the media forget. Don't forget that the media did this, and don't let them get away with it. Is what I'm saying. But yeah, Ukraine is trying to drag us into World War III. I don't think that's going to happen, simply because I think everyone is trying to keep a cool head here, except for the media, of course. But NATO is trying like not to get involved in a no-fly zone. Ukraine is seeking membership in the EU. For that, I want Ukraine like sanctioned for trying to enter the EU. This is ridiculous. I think the EU, but especially NATO, needs to be disbanded because of what's going on here in Russia. This is partially Biden's fault for being a feckless idiot, but it's also the existence of NATO and the EU that's making this possible.
Because you don't think both of those should exist.
Right, but the reason why these two institutions cause this problem is that people don't get this, but the EU and NATO are extensions of America in Europe, right? So when NATO was founded, it was really supposed to be these like really Western countries. Like the furthest east country was supposed to be like West Germany or Italy, right? And then they started expanding eastward. Well, if the EU and NATO and they both exist and they start expanding eastward, how do you think Vladimir Putin's going to feel about this? Because the way Vladimir Putin looks at it, these are all extensions of the American empire. You may as well, like, I don't see how it's any different than I don't see how the NATO and the EU gobbling up these countries. Obviously, the methods are different, and so fine, whatever. But in terms of what's actually going on the ground, I don't see how that's any different than Russia going in and conquering other countries and saying like, oh, we're part of the Russian Federation now. I don't see how that's any different.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So like now they're all the way in Ukraine, and Russia feels like, oh, the Americans are coming for us now. And then it's like, okay, well, why do we care if the Americans come? Well, because the Russians aren't Americans. They don't see the world the American way. I don't like Russian culture. Don't get me wrong. I think Russian culture is very sad. They don't smile a lot. And it's actually by design. They think this is the most Russian thing I've ever heard. Apparently in Russian society, smiling for no reason is seen as a sign of being untrustworthy.
I think I've heard of that once. Yeah, it's very interesting. I forget why though.
And like I get the logic of it. It's just a very cynical way of looking at the world, and I don't like it, right? But just as I wouldn't want the Russian society coming to my doorstep and telling me how to live, I wouldn't want the like if I was Russian, I probably wouldn't want the Americans coming to my doorstep and telling me like, oh, you need to trans the kids now, and you need to smile all the time.
You're definitely right.
And we see this also in terms of like how the media is covering Ukraine, like they're trying to like there was a story that came out of like some trans Ukrainian, like a man who quote unquote transitioned into a woman. And she was very sad because the Ukrainians made him stay rather, and fight the war as a man because he's a man. He's not a woman. You can't just dress up as a woman and shirk your masculine duty for your country, which is very interesting to me. But they're just not the same thing, right? And people don't get this. Like the East does not believe in the same things the West does, and Putin is looking at that and going, "Well, I don't want Russia to turn into, trans the kids land like it is in America." So
yeah, no, you're 100% right. Yeah, like I mentioned before, like you'll see propaganda. There was a not propaganda. There was a recruiting video for the military. This is only mentioned in last week's podcast of the U.S. one was like of this girl, and she's like, oh, I'm really proud of my lesbian like parents or something, my moms, and like this inspired me to like go to the army. And then it goes to like the Russian one, and like they're jumping out of planes, and it's dark and it's badass, and there's like rock music in the back.
well, yeah,
that's so different.
It is so different. It's like, what do you value? And in the United States, we kind of like are not serious. We don't value killing the enemies. Like even the military now is woke nonsense. And I like, again, I'm not saying that Putin's a good guy, and I'm not saying he's this defender of Russia, because obviously like there are aspects of his country that I don't want. But anyone who thinks that the West has some moral edge on Russia, it's just not true. That doesn't mean I support Russia. I'm just pointing out that this isn't exactly like when it comes to America versus the Arab world. I think when it comes to them, I think, yeah, America's got its problems, but I think we're better than the Durka Durka world, right? Like the team, like we really do need a Team America World Police when it comes to the sand people over there. But like when you got these goat herders living in caves, like slaughtering. Like, did you see what happened in Iran? That this guy slaughtered his wife, like walked around with her head.
My God.
Yeah, no, these are sand people. That's like terrible. That's like, I don't want them near me. But Russia's not like that. It's just slightly different. They focus on different things. They have other problems. They're a little bit more corrupt than we are, although at this point I don't even think that's true. They're a little bit more kind of like gloomy and kind of distrustful. Okay, not exactly my society, but we got other problems that they don't. So I don't like. Leave them alone. Don't push NATO and the EU on them. They don't need it, and Ukraine doesn't need it, and Latvia doesn't need it, and Estonia doesn't need it, and Poland doesn't need it. Get the West out of the East. I don't want them there. So there's that. But I think the worst part about this is that the liberal economic order is now punishing Russians for or not. Sometimes they're not even punishing Russians; they're punishing us for what's going on. Did you see the story about how in Canada, of course, Canada, they went back to being a not serious country after they dispersed the Freedom Convoy? There was a restaurant that decided to rename their famous dish, poutine. They decided to rename it to like something else because it sounds too much like Putin.
Oh.
You know what poutine is?
Remind me.
It's like when you have French fries and you like drizzle gravy on it and you put cheese curds. It looks kind of good, actually. I want to try it one time.
All right. I mean, I hear it. I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess it could drive away business if I don't know. If is there? Imagine if Jews. We went to a restaurant and um, I don't know. Imagine you went to a restaurant and something sounded similar to like Hitler or Adolf.
Well, first of all, Adolf is a name just like anyone else, but also, like, why would you rename your own culture just because some other guy in some other country has a name that sounds similar to it?
Because then you're right. I don't If it sounds similar, I wouldn't change it. I mean, but look, you have to look at it at a business perspective. Like if people will if the potential is there that people won't come or eat because there's some sort of similarity to the name, then yeah, you might change it.
But
But
I don't think that was
yeah.
going to happen, though. I don't think the average Canadian, as silly as I think Canada is, I don't think the average Canadian was going to be like, I love poutine. I love eating French fries with gravy and cheese curds because that's awesome. But damn, that name is terrible. We should change
You're
it.
right. I mean, look, because the association, like, I'm sure it's a well-known dish, and
It's very well known. It's what Canada's known for. That
exactly.
that
So, like,
apologizing too much and curling.
so if it's well known, then like you could walk in and you obviously know, hey, this is not like Putin. So, and in that case, I would say yes, it's stupid to change it. It would be similar if the French, started, gone to war with I don't know Spain or something, and so we started changing the word like French fry
we
to
did
like
that.
something.
We did that.
I mean, we attempted to change like what to freedom fries.
Yeah, it's
Like
a
that
freedom
didn't
prize
work.
movie. It didn't work because it's dumb. It's dumb. It's very dumb. They renamed white Russians, I think, to white Ukrainians. They changed chicken Kiev to chicken Kiev, which is the same. We just changed the spelling, which is even dumber. But now, like, and then we like punish the cat people for having Russian breeds. Like, so if you're an American and you own a Russian cat breed, you can't bring it to a cat show. Nothing to do with like actual Russians.
Really?
Which is very dumb. But this is just like dumb things. This is just punishing ourselves. Let's talk about how we're punishing the Russians. Right now, there's like a whole list of companies that do not operate in Russia. You've got, of course, like Nike. You've got, your McDonald's. Coca-Cola wants to pull out. Most interestingly was Pornhub. It's like, yeah, I'm sure Vladimir Putin. I'm sure Vladimir Putin is like sitting there in the middle of the night, like losing sleep. How will my soldiers jack off? Like this is a man that builds cathedrals. He's probably like, good riddance, Pornhub. I remember reading a story saying like they're gonna ban porn in Russia anyways, and they're gonna tell like people's like, go find a wife, you degenerate losers. And I'm like thinking, well, that solves the problem, doesn't it? Like if Pornhub just BTFOs themselves, then that's great. By the time all these international corporations leave Russia will be the type of country that I would want to move to. So they got no porn, no junk food, no social media. They cut off Facebook and Twitter over there. You can't access them over there. That's great. Sounds like a great place. Sign me up. Like I'll move
Except
to.
That's literally freezing there like all year round.
Yeah, but imagine finding a hot Russian babe, like some like do you ever see these Russian women? Some of them are gorgeous, right? They're gorgeous over there, and then you got to find a hot one because sometimes like I don't know what it is with Russians, like they're either like a 10 or a 2. I don't know what it is. Like it's something very weird about like that place in the world where like there's no like average looking women. There's like either like too gorgeous to exist or they're just like you don't want to look at them.
You don't deserve to exist.
You don't. No, they're too gorgeous. It's not about deserving to exist. It's that I don't understand like how they like who's like congratulations to the parents of some of these like kids. Like, oh my God. But you got these beautiful women over there in Russia. No social media, no junk food. You can't get fat, right? There's no porn, right? Can't get hooked on porn because 94% of men have watched porn and 6% are liars. So so like there's no porn and you just go to Russia and it's a paradise. Like, it's great, that's gonna happen. But I think the scary thing is that you'll see a lot of Russians now, they don't have access to their bank accounts because I think Apple shut down with Apple Pay, so Russians can't pay for anything. Visa and MasterCard don't work in Russia anymore.
Yeah, a lot of sanctions. I mean, no, I don't know. They've been doing a lot of sanctions with the central bank. I don't know about the private banks. What they've been doing a lot of like state things, at least in concern of America and the other countries. What private companies have been doing, I don't know, but I all I've heard of are the state wide stuff.
Right, but I think it's very important to understand that it's a different thing. Like, it's one thing to like kind of say, oh, we're going to stop buying Russian oil. That itself would have been a big blow to Russia, right? But I
Yeah,
think
of
if you
course.
bet, but I think if you go to the average Russian and you say, oh, because Vladimir Putin started a war, therefore you can't have access to your bank account. How do you think the average Russians are going to feel?
They're gonna they're gonna feel bad. Not bad, but they're gonna be not happy.
Well, that's like a very like kind of weird way to put it, but they're not going to be happy is the least of our problems. But then Vladimir Putin comes. Like, think about, like, I hate the liberal economic order just as much as anyone else does, but think about it from the liberal economic order's perspective, right? Just I'm trying to figure this out, right? So the liberal economic order is trying to get people to be like kind of open to the idea of the liberal economic order, right? Okay, so you've just proven why the liberal economic order is a big fucking problem, because now you have these international credit companies, right, like Visa, MasterCard, that have decided, like, oh, if your country steps out of line, that's it. You can't access your bank account. You can't pay for anything. There's nothing to buy. You're going to starve to death because Vladimir Putin started a war. And it's like, okay, well, so now we're going to make our own institutions and we're going to make our own things. And if you're the Americans, you better be prepared for when the Russians come up with their own payment system and they come up with their own economic system and they get off the petrodollar. Because, dear God, it's going to get very, very, very dicey in the United States when the money dries up, when the petrodollar is not the universal language anymore.
Oh, yeah, I see it going away. I mean, in the next like 10 years, 20 years, I could definitely see it going away soon.
Right. And the bill will come up, and this is going to be partly the reason, because instead of allowing the system to work, they weaponize the system that was very obviously designed to make things easier, right? They weaponized it to turn it against average people, right? We saw this, and this is our third topic, by the way, which I called "That's Not Very Cash Money of Us," and that's going to be the title of the episode. So that's that. I'm pretty proud of that title, actually. Everyone, I'll see myself out. But yeah, you saw this with Canada, right? You saw this not just with the truckers, who are just normal people who are protesting the government, like the proletariat protesting the bourgeoisie. You saw this with people who donated to the trucker, like the Give Send Go campaign. Like, they had their accounts shut down because you give 10 buckaroos to the truckers who are protesting for freedom. It's like all of a sudden you can't access your bank account.
Yeah.
And like, okay, well, now I don't want these credit cards, and I don't want these banking companies having access to my money. And then you don't have the banks; they're not investing because you've destroyed your trust in them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now the banks think it's their business to go and shut down bank accounts of people they don't like. So, for example,
That's
there
why
was
some people only deal with cash.
but that's the other problem, right? Because it's a catch-22, right? So if let's say you put your money in the bank, the government can ban your account and then you don't have money, right? But if you put it in cash, the government could just print money and then your
Cash
money
is
is,
worthless and you're not earning interest off of it.
yeah, which is a big problem. So there's this article, right, came out of Unheard, how corporations can delete your existence. Losing a Twitter account for controversial statements is one thing. Losing a bank account is quite another thing, right? So this is about a woman named Laura Towler. And basically, the article talks about how she was in Britain because she's from England, and she decided she was going to go to shop, and she put her card, and the card didn't work, and she knew she has money in the card because she's presumably an adult who has a bank account in the Plus, which is more than I can say about myself. I guess for me, just nothing would change if my bank account was attacked by the government. I don't have anything. I don't have anything.
It's like, Joke's on you. I don't have money anyways.
I know. I
I'm an
don't.
irresponsible adult.
That's the advantage of not being good with money. The government can't nail you on that. I guess they could. In all seriousness, it probably would be terrible. But at this point, like if the government wants to arrest me, they can do it. I don't really care. Anyways, so she goes and she wants to go shopping, and the banking app, the card didn't work, and she checked the banking app, and the banking app said that there was an error. She goes to the bank. And the manager said they just shut down her account. Apparently, it's because she has like bad opinions.
Apparently,
she has bad. No, she's also Laura Towler, one of the founders of Patriotic Alternative. Towler is a sort of next-gen BNP type, British National Party type, a net-savvy white identitarian who campaigns against mass migration and occasionally winks to her Telegram followers about you know who. They know all right, the Jews. It would seem that Towler had been expelled from Santander, which was the name of the bank, for her views, but in line with the bank's conditions, this has not been made clear. Several things. Number one, like, okay, Laura's a bad person. Like, if this is true, I don't know how true this is, but if it's true that she's a bad person, she's a bad person. I don't think anyone needs to, like, kind of rehash this. Like, yeah, Jews are fine. No reason to hate them. But, like, as a Jew, I don't even want people banning people from banks on our account. I would much rather have the Nazis have their bank accounts than be like, oh, the Jews shut down my bank account because I said the wrong thing against the Jews.
mm-hmm.
I would much rather have that. But also, like, I just don't want that used against me. Like, I want the banks to be like a neutral platform that like can only be shut down through due process.
Yeah, through due process. Well, was this shut down in due process?
No. The bank just said we don't like Laura Towler, so we're going to shut down our account. Because she has bad opinions.
Well, yeah, I think that's wrong because then, like you said, because then where do you draw the line? It's like then you could just do that for anyone, and then on a bigger scale, like we were talking about before with like the truckers and other things. So yeah, because if you don't, yeah, I do think you're right. It's definitely wrong of them to do it for her, even if you disagree with her opinions. The action itself is wrong.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to continue here. Coincidence abounds in the modern world. Last year, on the other side of the Atlantic, this is referring to America, various alt-ish right figures. This is obviously, a left-wing publication because I think these people are alt-right. Alt-ish right figures who banked with JP Morgan Chase woke up on the same morning to find that they no longer banked with JP Morgan Chase. They included the chair of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, former InfoWars staffer Joe Biggs, Project Veritas associate Laura Loomer, and Martina Markota, a Trump-supporting performance artist. Of those four, it's the other Laura whose case drives home the full capriciousness of corporate power.
So I just want to rewind a little bit to what you said. So wait, you said before that even in like Nazi Germany, like, you wouldn't want a bank to shut down like Nazi accounts.
No. I mean, like, I don't know if I don't know if I necessarily disagree with what you said, but I'm saying that I don't want Nazi bank accounts shut down unless they commit a crime which would warrant the bank accounts shut down as per very specified and specific
but
laws.
Their ideology, that influenced them to do violence, you wouldn't want. Like, they didn't do any harm, but you wouldn't want them to close their bank accounts.
What about harm? It doesn't matter. There's certain things that should not be like. I'm okay with kicking a guy who's goose stepping, in a business out of his job. Like, I agree. There's certain things that should be not available to society, but I don't want people to be like shut out of finance just because they believe the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
It's simply a matter of like, even from a practical standpoint, imagine you ban Nazis from the financial platforms. First of all, if you ban Nazis from financial platforms, they're going to blame it on the Jews. Because
you're right.
Hello, like, they're going to blame it on us. And more importantly, like, What do you think they're going to do if they all of a sudden can't pay their rent? They can't pay for air travel. They can't. What do you think they're going to do?
Riot?
Riot would be a good thing. They probably would go shoot up a synagogue in the hopes that, the police come shoot them because now they have no reason to live. Give an extreme person no way out and they will do that.
Go out with a bang?
Why not? No,
I don't
seriously,
know.
why not? When it comes to extremists, the last thing, and I'm not saying all extremists, I'm not saying like the common liberal thing that you can dangle like a $2 bill in front of an extremist and they'll like do whatever you want. They'll like modernize. What I am saying is don't take away their reasons to live. Don't take away the reasons they have not to like shoot people.
Mm-hmm.
If this Laura Towler person is such a dangerous individual, why would you want to take away the one thing that allows her to continue living her life? Now she's going to go shoot up a Muslim thing, whatever, because, she can't do anything. Why not? Why not go to prison where it's easier? Like, at least you don't have to pay for things there. You're just sending her to prison with extra steps. Because she can't live like that. She can't live like this. You can't donate to her because the government's going to say, oh, you donate to Laura Towler. Oh, your bank account's shut down, right? She can't buy anything. And no one gets paid.
Guys, you want to send this person to prison? How should we do it? We should close down their bank account, and then they'll have to do a crime, and they'll go to jail.
Well, show me where the lie is. Show me where the lie is.
I guess that's one way to get someone to jail.
It's like get them to put them in a corner in which they have to do something illegal so that you could send them to prison. Just keep on prodding them. Anyways, of those four, it's the other Laura whose case drives home the full capriciousness of corporate power in a networked age. Loomer styles herself as the most banned woman in the world. In addition to Chase, she is banned from PayPal, from Venmo, from the Cash App, Airbnb, and Instagram, from Lyft, Uber, and Uber Eats, from the blogging monetization platform Word Ads and the t-shirt print-to-order site Teespring, from Twitter and Facebook, obviously, and from any one of a half dozen other platforms for digital congress.
So, digital congress. Well, so she literally can't do anything.
Yeah. By the way, Laura Loomer?
No.
Yeah, so this is the Laura they're talking about, right? Because they're not talking about the Laura Towler. It's very confusing, but they're talking about Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer's a Jew.
Okay, and what does she do?
She supports Trump.
Oh, wow.
Mike Lindell from MyPillow?
Yeah.
So he had all of his money taken out of I think a Minnesota bank. They just we don't want to be associated with you. They just shipped him his money. When it came to Laura Towler was sent her money in a check. She wasn't even sent bills.
You can't even do anything with that.
Well, what do you do? If you have 100,000 euros in a check, who's gonna give you 100,000 euros in cash? Who the hell is gonna do that? And if one bank canceled her, who's gonna give her the other bank? It's not even like they're giving her money. She can't pay her rent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so they gave her a worthless piece of paper. Here, remember how
instead.
What?
Use crypto instead.
Well, so that's what I was going to say. A lot of people say oh, we should switch to crypto. Well, there's a huge problem with crypto. Number one, it's very easy for people to say oh, use crypto when you're a young person. But some people are old and they don't want to use crypto. And some people are just not tech savvy. Some people just don't understand crypto.
You're right.
Also, crypto, you really need internet. That's the thing. Crypto, you need internet to verify transactions. What if you're in, I don't know, say, for example, just hypothetically, let's say you're in a war zone, I don't know, Ukraine, where there's no internet?
Hypothetically.
I heard, hypothetically, should there be a war between Russia and Ukraine? What happens if there's no internet?
How does crypto... I wonder.
No, but seriously, what do you do if there's no internet? Because a lot of the crypto bros are I live in the first world, I live in New York, and there's always going to be internet and if there's not going to be internet, it's going to be for 5 minutes, it's going to be fixed. Well, hold on a minute. Do you remember that 9/11 happened 20 years ago? 9/11 happened 20 years ago. And the internet can shut down like that. You don't realize how crazy the internet is. I don't think crypto can shut down like that, but they could shut down the internet very quickly if they really wanted to.
Yeah, no, you could.
Yeah,
Crazy.
That's why we need cash. We need physical representations of value, right? I like banks. I like credit cards. I like debit cards. They're all very neat, okay? I like all these innovations, but they cannot replace cash, which is very unfortunate because we have this study. I think, let me just find it. I sent it to you. I'm just going to find it here. I don't know why it's not up. Let's see. Cashless society draws closer with only 1 in 6 payments now in cash. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, in that scenario, yeah, obviously, I mean, yeah, people are going more digital. No one carries cash anymore, which I sometimes feel bad because like I know people who carry no cash on them, and like I barely carry cash on me. I always carry some cash on me, but then like even when I'm walking in the city and there's a like I wonder like what are like homeless people gonna do? Like once no one's carrying cash on them, it's like how can you
I never
give
give
them
to the
money?
homeless because I don't carry cash on me. Like, if I kept cash, it would be like in a safe in my room. Like, I would not carry cash on me. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the fact that you can put cash in your safe and you could walk around with a debit card. Like, that's very convenient. But the idea that you cannot use cash anywhere, like, for example, in Israel, I don't know if I spoke about this here. I'm pretty sure I spoke about it on the podcast. In Israel, they do not take cash on the bus.
Yeah,
So
I was
on the
so
bus,
upset when they changed that.
yeah, but it's not just about convenience. As far as I'm concerned, the last vestige of anonymous travel was the bus, right? Because if any car nowadays has like some way to track it, right, and then has like the license plates, whatever, right? But a bus, theoretically, you could get on a bus. Like, up until recently, you could get on a bus in Israel and no one would know who you are, right? You could pay in cash. No one needs to know who you are. No one needs to check your ID. But now, you either need to pay by card or you scan the QR code on the bus, and it's like, that's not dystopian in any way. Like, now they're relying on you to carry your phone around.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things like it's one of those things where freedom and convenience kind of don't really mesh well. And what I mean by that is like if you want more convenience, you need to give up more freedoms. And if you want more freedoms, you have to give up more convenience. And what I mean by that is, like you said, like now we have all this digital stuff, credit cards, all that, which is, very easy, very quick. You don't have to carry physical money on you, which gives you all this convenience. And if you go to crypto, now there's going to be even faster convenience. But with that, but in order for those conveniences, you need to give up certain freedoms.
But I
So
disagree with that. I disagree with that fundamentally. This is not an either or situation. We've had cash up until 2 minutes ago.
I
Cash
know, but
is
it was
very,
more
very,
difficult to do things.
but you don't have to throw away the option for cash. You
No,
could,
I'm not saying you should throw away the option for cash. Are
right.
they actually thinking of, hey, we're not going to print out money anymore?
Well,
The
yes.
dollar bill you're holding in your hand is worthless now?
Well, yes, because the central banks want digital currencies. They want digital centralized currencies.
I mean, look, if they're thinking of like banning it outright, I don't think so. That they should do that. But I mean, I just know society in general is just going towards that direction, even without them having to,
But this
outlaw
is a
physical cash.
problem. This is a problem. And I mean, like, you could also just see it in regular life. Like, the government doesn't even necessarily need to stop printing cash. If there are places that want to get rid of a cash register and just accept cash and just accept like credit payments or just accept crypto, that's bad for society. I know, like, and this is not against my roommate or anything like that. Great guy, right? But sometimes I'll ask my roommate, like, "Oh, my card's not working. My card's giving me an issue because I only have a certain type of card. I don't have a credit card. I only have debit cards. So sometimes I don't like I'm not allowed to buy things on certain websites, which is fine. Like, it's not the end of the world. But I'll ask like my roommate, "Oh, can I use your credit card? Here's the cash." And he's like, "I don't want cash. I don't use cash. I don't want it." Right? That's a big problem that people have this attitude because we need cash. We need cash to have value. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a problem that number one, this is a very bad for number one for national security, because as we've seen in Russia, Ukraine, that we need physical types of money. Right? It's also bad for society because I want to be able to do things and not rely on a central banking system. Because in the olden days, if the government wanted to take your money, they had to come with soldiers and confiscate it. And if you hid your money, they didn't have anywhere to get it. Now your money is in a bank. It's all just like zeros and ones. The government can tell the bank, because they can't actually do this by law. They can't take it themselves. What they can do is they can tell the bank, oh, like, hey, buddy, if you know how like we're funding all these banks by with taxpayer dollars. So why don't you just take this bank account and ban it?
It would be a real shame if something were to happen.
Yeah, it's a great, and that's like how like they're gonna do conformity, right? Because they'll be like, oh, it's a really nice bank account you got there. It'd be a real shame if you didn't have it anymore, and we sent
I
you
mean,
a check with all your money.
That's literally what the U.S. does to get its way. So, for example, when they wanted to make the drinking age and gambling to 21, it used to go by the states. Like, some states did 18, some states did 21. And then they're like, hey, the federal government was like, hey, everyone needs to do 28, sorry, not 28, 21 for gambling and like drinking. Texas, didn't want to listen, and they didn't listen. And they stopped, in order to get Texas to get in line with it, they stopped like funding. They said like anyone that doesn't do it, it's like they're not going to get funding for like roads and stuff.
Well,
And
I mean,
they literally like blackmail Texas into following them. So that's like it's the same concept where it's like
it's the same concept. It's the same concept, but it hasn't been leveraged against individual citizens until very recently.
No, you're right. It hasn't been levered towards individual citizens, but it's just on a smaller scale. Yeah,
it's on a smaller scale. I think also when it comes to Texas, the government didn't say, oh, we're going to ban all accounts from Texas. We're going to prevent Texas from buying anything. What they said is, we're not going to send you federal dollars, which is a problem, because then the federal government is used.
Unless you listen to us. So I'm saying they're going to do the same thing towards the bank. It's like, oh, you need to listen to us. And if you don't, like, we're not going to give you this money or that, or,
Right, but that's like a bigger problem in terms of like we see this now, where the government won't necessarily infringe upon your First Amendment rights, but they'll tell Facebook, oh, we need to start banning more accounts that support Trump.
Yeah.
They won't do it themselves, but they'll use corporations as kind of an in between. And then they skirt the amendment issues, and that's a very big problem. And someone needs to, and Republicans need to start wising up and saying like, "Oh my God, the banks cannot shut down your bank account because you have the wrong opinions. They cannot do that. That is unacceptable." And it's not a matter of let's just move on to different types of things, because it has to do with the trust we have in our society and our institutions. It is not going to be good for us if people do not trust the banks. It will be very bad for people who, even for the people who do well in the banks. It's very bad. We live in this society where no one wants to be associated with anyone, but the banks are an institution fundamentally that require everyone to associate with everyone, because it requires everyone to put their money in the banks, and then they need to invest it and loan it out to people. And that's why we have the wealth that we do. If we don't trust anyone, then we're not going to have banks anymore. So it's very important that the government needs to come in now. When the Republicans win in 2022, it's very important that the government's mandate all these bank accounts be reinstated, and then make brand new laws, not only protecting the rights of people who use the banks, but also protecting cash as an institution, and legislating that cash needs to be accepted in very, very important industries, such as you need to accept cash for rent, you need to accept cash for grocery stores, you need to accept cash for transportation. You need to make it so that cash works in very, very key industries. If some guy on the corner doesn't want to operate, a cash register, in his little bodega, that I don't care about. What I do care about is if you go to the grocery store and they say like, oh, we only take credit, and you can't operate if you don't have a credit card, and oh, you said the wrong thing on Facebook, so now you don't have a credit card anymore. Oh well, I'm very concerned about that. So that's what I think, and we need to keep cash as an option. And I want to see that in America. I want to see that in Israel. The liberal economic order is trying to take away our way of doing business. And it's very important that our legislature put a stop to this immediately. I think this is the most important issue. More important than anything else. More important than even the trans kids. This is the issue that I think matters.
Yeah. Whether it's the most important matter, I mean, it's definitely important.
Oh, listen, maybe I was being a bit hyperbolic. I don't know if transing the kids is more important than this or less important. But you could certainly make an argument that like destroying the way we trade. Not like I'm not talking about international trade or GDP or just we need a little more extra money on like a little more exports. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the way that I go to the store and buy milk. I'm talking to the way that I pay for my rent. That cannot be made fully digital because the minute it's made fully digital, it's susceptible to internet crash. It's susceptible to government interference. It's susceptible to woke culture. We need to make cash king again. We need to make cash great again. Make cash great again. That is going to be my slogan when I run.
That's your slogan for when you run for dictator and president?
I know when I run to be democratically elected to be the supreme tyrant of whatever country I'm in, I'm going to be like, make cash great again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's going to go well because I think a lot of people are of your mind, Rody, which is that credit's very convenient and they don't quite get how important cash is.
No, don't get me wrong. I agree with you that there is an issue of getting rid of cash. And obviously I'm just a lazy person and I obviously like the convenience of not using cash. But no, I'm a very big fan of cash.
But that's why I'm not like ban Visa MasterCard. That's not why I'm like that. I like those things, and it's very convenient to be able to send money across the planet. You can't do that with cash. Like, don't get me wrong. It's very good that we have these financial institutions. They need to be protected. They need to be legislated into submission, right? So that, like, when you go to the bank, you know that it doesn't matter what you posted on Facebook. It doesn't matter what you said at a college campus. You can use your credit card. It needs to be made so that if you need to use cash for whatever reason, the things that matter the most, you can buy in cash. That's what I think matters.
All right. And that's our episode. We hope you enjoyed. Please like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. We are also on all your favorite podcast streaming services. You can reach out to us by DMing us on Instagram at The Right Side of the Compass or by commenting on the video in the comment section. We hope you enjoyed and we look forward to you tuning in next time.